All right.
So much product,
I think we're
John, on the
good.
table. This
Should
thing
be
is like
good. Hope so.
the best tactical toy store in
Make sure that my
Vegas
headphones are on right.
at the John Barlow show.
Yeah, the best tactic, the worst gun store in America. All right. Let me do the sponsors. Let me
Okay.
make this professional. All right, we're back with another episode, but first the sponsors. As always, head over to www.johnbartoloshow.com and go check out all the sponsors. I want to thank Gallo Technologies for the walls behind us, Rhino Metals for all the tables, Blackwater Ammunition, Galco Leather Holsters. I'm missing someone. Wait,
There's
I think
more.
I have more,
There's got to be more.
but I got echo. Hang on.
Check. Testing.
Sorry about that.
Testing.
My fault.
Testing.
I try to keep it as raw as humanly possible, but that was bad. It's because I was listening to something earlier. So, Full Courts and Firearms, special thanks to them. And I want to thank, I'm missing someone.
There's got to be more.
There's way more.
Way too much cool stuff in this studio, John, to keep the list that short.
Pulsar. Pulsar. There we go.
There
Pulsar.
it is.
Yeah, no. I'm drawing a blank for some reason. Thank you. And to everybody, there's a million companies that help the show. Listen, go to the website and check them all out. There's a clickable link there, and there's links down below. I could do a commercial on them all day. The show wouldn't happen without them. We appreciate them. I got a special guest today, but before I get to him, too, a little housekeeping. Leave reviews. Do a terrible job asking for reviews. Go check them out. All the different reviews on there. Try to leave a 5-star if you can. Whatever your platform. I'm trying to get on Rumble. If anyone out there knows anything about Rumble, give me a call. Today's guest, we're going to get into it. There's a lot we got to cover. He was trying to do a brain dump on me before we started, and I was trying to avoid it because I wanted it fresh. So, what's going on, John Norris?
Good to see you again, brother.
Oh, this is great.
Yeah, it's been a whole couple of months, and man, has a lot
A
changed.
lot has changed.
Yeah, we had an election transition. We had protests at the Capitol. We had all this two-way stuff, all this border stuff, and your studio's blowing up and looking amazing.
It's totally
It continues
different.
to
Yeah,
grow.
a
Yeah,
lot changes.
it's amazing.
Listen, dive into the Secretary of Interior thing and that change, what that means and what that represents when that seat goes Dem, and what the threats and risks and everything could be.
Well, when you look at the Department of Interior, having worked with so many federal agencies that work directly for the Department of Interior, BLM, U.S. Forest Service as one, and then me coming from a state agency, we had our own Department of Interior resources, at the state level doing the same thing. And, I have that bias of being a conservationist, obviously being a thin green line game warden for 30 plus years and growing up as a conservationist, an ethical and legal hunter, and understanding that environmental protection, to be as effective as it can be, has to involve conservation. Obviously balance of the species, getting money into the system, protecting our wildlife habitat for the animals that are out there. And you never know where a new administration is going to fall from a conservation versus preservation standpoint. And are these environmental laws that we are enacting under whatever administration, are they really benefiting not only our wildlife resources and our waterway resources and wildland resources, but are they benefiting the outdoor enthusiast and the public in utilizing our resources and enjoying the great outdoors, whether you hunt or fish or not? So that's always a concern.
Now,
and yeah,
I wanted to ask, do you think, now, setting everything aside that's been so polarizing with politics and everything else,
right,
I would think that would be a pure position, right? Like, you would hope. I mean, you would hope, right, John? Like, you hope that someone who comes into that seat, who in effect becomes the boss of the land, so to speak, and how that land's used and so on and so forth, you would hope that that would be the purest seat in the cabinet. But it not always is, right?
It not always is, John. And this is the thing. When it comes to environmental protection, you kind of want to walk the line and be a win on every side, right?
Right.
It doesn't matter if you sit on the left or you're on that side of the political fence or the right. you're a conservationist or preservationist, nobody wants to see poison water.
No.
Drinking water or poison water in wild lands.
That
Nobody
should be-
wants to see a bunch of dead, poisoned animals. And I use the mission we had on the marijuana enforcement team and what my teammates are still doing in California and the whole topic of hidden war, right? The book. Non-political. You know, obviously, if you're a cannabis user or you favor left or you're anti and you favor right, the bottom line is when the cartels are doing what they're doing out there and they're affecting every side of the political fence because they're damaging not only wildlife resources and waterways, but they're threatening our public safety because they're out in the wild lands that all people of all political factions are going to enjoy, then we can kind of unify on that. That's one thing I can say through all the crazy polarization we've had in recent years and all the way through what happened at the Capitol a couple weeks ago since I last saw you.
We'll get into that stuff.
Oh, I know. I'm not digressing. I'm not tangenting too much yet, but one thing our team's been able to do in California is stay kind of Switzerland on the political fence and get the left and the right unified in our mission, knowing they don't want this stuff out there. And we need that at the national level.
And you got to break in a new administration. That's always the tricky thing.
It is.
You got to break in a whole new boss, as they always say. You know,
it is. And
you know, the interior thing scares me.
Yeah,
because everything's so split. It scares me, and I thought of you a lot with how polarizing this administration is. And I said, these motherfuckers, they're gonna, you know. Yeah. I know you don't want to say it, but it's like I'm like they're gonna make this like a thing, and things like you said, like clean drinking water conservation. They shouldn't be divided things. You'd think
they absolutely should not, and that's going to be the problem moving forward. You know, I don't want to jump ahead to
frustrating.
You know, some of the Capitol events that just happened, but dude, it's heartbreaking and it is agonizingly irritating, and I can't tell you how angry I've been just at the level of divisiveness and how personal the attacks have gotten. And I try to stay out of the political side of it and just factor on, you know, the sociological effects of it. Just look at the issue of cause and effect, right, John? Cause and effect. If you don't protect this, this is going to be destroyed. If A, then B, B, then C. It's how it's going to go. And it doesn't matter where we sit politically, but if we're all fighting and hating each other, and policies are getting rammed through with an agenda that don't really benefit America as a whole, that's my fear.
Right.
And I know where you're going with this, and we share that same fear. And having known several people in the past administration and knowing the conservation kind of ethos that was part of that, and many administrations before that have come and gone at the state level and at the federal level, I've seen a lot of good things happen, and I fear some bad things happening as well, like you bring up.
Now, I know you noticed, you know, the Keystone Pipeline thing and some things that, you know, have affected jobs and that are going to affect a lot of things, and that trickles all the way down. So it's been an interesting, what is it? What are we in now? 3 days, 4 days of this administration? I mean, a week.
Yeah, a week.
You know,
it's been a week or so.
There's a lot to cover, but I wanted to bring up the Secretary of Interior thing because that hits home first and hits hard, and that's going to be a stark change. And I think there's going to be some uphill battles. I think tying this all together, we're due for a lot of uphill battles in the gun rights space, in the legislations, anything. You know, right now he's done more executive orders than Obama, Bush, and Trump combined, I believe, combined.
Right.
So, you know, this is going to be a scary time. Now, some are getting blocked, you know, like I know you guys do a lot with Border, and Border stepped in, federal judge stepped in and blocked one of his executive orders regarding immigration. Because how can you police that? There's so many things that, it's just crazy. So, you know, when I look at the lay of the land, we're in for an uphill battle on all fronts. We really are.
We really are. And at this point, John, I can only hope that whoever gets that Department of Interior spot and whatever policies are going to be set nationally, that they're looking at this thing, and this is almost oxymoronic to say, but from a non-political standpoint. And it's going to depend on the vetted background of that particular leader and what guns they're willing to stick to really put the American people and our environment ahead of an agenda either way. And we all know that can either go good or bad. And I just don't know yet. And I have the same fears you do. You brought up the border issue, and I have gotten so many calls and so many direct messages and emails.
Terrifying.
In the last couple of weeks of, well, what does this mean for, you know, everything your team has been fighting? On the interior, the west coast of California, right? The west coast of the U.S., But all these border control agents, all these BLM rangers, all these guys I've worked with all over the country, and they're down on the border fighting this fight.
Yeah.
And I know you and I have talked before off the show, but
It's wild.
when COVID dropped during the last administration, we've had we're coming up on almost a year since March when it really got crazy. What people don't realize is the impacts to law enforcement in general, especially wildland law enforcement officers like BLM, like Border Patrol, Customs Border Protection, us on Fish and Wildlife, Fish and Game, Forest Service. The amount of enforcement pressure against these cartels decimating the environment, producing prohibited narcotics, trafficking in humans, the children's sex trade, making these, clandestine black market prescription opioids and distributing them all over the country with environmental impacts, not only public safety, health impacts. It was carte blanche. Carte blanche for these guys last year before any of this lack of border control was brought up under the next leadership. So this is scary.
What's the number one risk with coming over the border? Is it the opioids? Is it the fentanyl, as we talked about? Is it the sex trafficking? What is like the most pressing thing people need to be concerned about? After I had Ed on, I have to say, and we talked about it a little offline, was the fentanyl thing. The fentanyl thing is terrifying because you take a hit of that shit and you're dead. Yeah. I mean, it's terrifying. For people that don't know, walk them through what fentanyl is and the ways in which they bring it over the border. Because when Ed brought up the pill press thing and everything in Mexico, I was blown away.
Yeah, that whole thing, and our brother Ed Calderon has talked about this. In fact, he and I both reposted a post from DeMoller that came in late last night, and I had to put this out, and he put it out appropriately as well. But as an example of a situation, just yesterday or the day before, 25 kilos of precursor chemicals that are the critical chemical to make fentanyl, which is a synthetic heroin for your listeners and viewers that don't know this stuff. It's 1,000 times more potent than a standard opium heroin. Jesus. And it's engineered in these clandestine labs down in Mexico. So dirty,
basically caves.
They're basically caves. Yeah. So one dose could just be a fentanyl dose that you could take for a black market painkiller. The next dose that a kid could take, you're dead in seconds. Law enforcement officers, us, even with protective gloves, if we don't have all the right PPE and we inhale this stuff, we touch it in, a brick that's been shipped illegally or transported across, you're dead. I mean, we've lost officers, and we're talking about thousands, not hundreds, but thousands of youth of opium users across the country are experiencing these deaths. And it is the hottest topic right now. You brought it up. Ed brought it up. Ed and I have talked about it. Bill Bodner, who's the SAC of the DEA out of LA office, oversees about 4 or 5 other parts of the country, including Guam and Hawaii. We had him on our Thin Green Line podcast shortly after Ed was on our podcast, and he brought up that all the things we fought on the tainted cannabis issue, we talk about human and sex trafficking, we talk about fentanyl, and we talk about meth. First thing we got to understand is these are all the same groups of cartel cells doing all these crimes. It's not just, hey, this is the fentanyl crew, and this is the, poison weed crew, and this is the human sex trafficking crew. They're all part of a big organization, and they're all embedded. And that was with border protection. That was with some stopgaps we have down there. And it's nothing against immigration. And I harp on people when we talk about border control and, 11 million immigrants giving citizenship that haven't been through the process. We don't know how vetted those individuals are. I mean, we're not anti-immigration by any means. This is a melting pot, right, John? We are the salad bowl of America, and we are blessed because we have that compilation of cultural mix. But if you're not vetting some of these folks through a proper process, there's a small percentage that are deportable felons.
100%.
They're on international watch list. Ed talks about it too, coming from dealing with it directly on our brother's end in Mexico. And these guys are doing heinous felony crimes. They've got assault charges, weapon charges. They're making drugs. They're trafficking in humans. There's some murder raps. And we see them all the time within our country. And our team puts them into custody. We deport them as we should, and we find them right back in, getting through the channels. And to your point on the fentanyl issue, it's out of control. And the other thing that goes hand in hand with that's a most red hot topic, even more proximate than this fentanyl thing that's been going off the hook for a couple of years now, is the counterfeit prescription narcotic pills made in these dirty labs in Mexico, but being smuggled across right now because our cartel cells can't get the precursor chemicals here in America. Something else Ed and I talked about on our show. They have to do them in these dirty cave labs all over Mexico. Then they have to smuggle them across with people, with tainted weed. It's all coming across. And same thing in those pills, John. One pill can be just like a Percocet or a codeine pill or, whatever prescription narcotic you might get after a surgery and you're recovering and you're going to be fine. And the very next pill in the bottle, and it looks just like a real pharmaceutical bottle. I mean, it's labeled appropriately and counterfeited, but very professional looking, and you're dead with the next pill. And that's taken thousands of people out right now. And we just got wind from Bill Bodner on the federal side from DEA, working hand in hand still on the marijuana issue with the tainted weed, with our med operators in California and fish and game officers, that this new prescription narcotic counterfeit thing is just blowing up nationally.
Now, when you say tainted weed, take everybody through what you mean by that.
Sure, I'll get back to what's in Hidden War and the story of our team and some of the pictures. As you know from reading the book, and I'm grateful you did to understand it and get the message out.
3/4 of the way through. Don't give me too much credit just yet. 3/4.
But you got through the color picture section.
I got through the picture section.
There's all those graphic pictures, and what do I show in those pictures? But poisoned and dead wildlife,
right?
Booby traps and punji pits, illegal weapons we've seized. What these guys look like, how they're camouflaged.
It's Ed's Manifesto's Instagram on those pages.
Pretty much, yeah. That's why we come from that same creed, if you will. But bottom line is, when I'm talking about tainted weed, I'm talking about cannabis that's made illegally on public lands or private lands in the outdoors, stealing pristine water, stuff that even in regulated states like California, Montana, Colorado, and 15, 20 others, this is not organic, clean, pharmaceutical grade dispensary weed, as cannabis should be regulated for anyone that's going to take it. We don't want to see any cannabis user, recreational or medical, ever ingest something that's a carcinogen or a nerve agent and could kill them, right? And all of this weed that we see in California and that the cartels grow in 25 other states besides California has banned poisons and pesticides called carbofuran, trade names like Ferdan, John, basically nerve agents and anticoagulants that were so toxic, the EPA banned them from being used on agriculture at all in America over 20 years ago.
I bring that up because I have a lot of UFC fighters that listen that may partake, so I want them to understand what tainted weed looks like. So it's scary, right? It's terrifying. And the reason I kind of brought up the clandestine labs thing is I want people to understand this shit's made in caves. I mean, it's literally made in these cave lab setups, because I can look at the pictures, I can see, and I see what's out there. I've never been boots on the ground to it, but from talking to Ed and you, I mean, these are not clean practices.
Not at all.
So when you go and to everybody listening, I hope no one is, but if you're going and you're procuring your heroin, or someone that is, this stuff isn't made clean. I hope my listeners are clean. If you need help, I'll get on. We'll get it to you. But this is not by any means made with any sterile materials.
None whatsoever. And those are the labs when we talk about the narcotic side, the opiate side, the fentanyl side. When you get into the tainted weed from an organic plant in the wild, the environmental impacts they're fivefold.
Right.
What any environmental waste product is going to do from these clandestine narcotics like fentanyl and like these counterfeit prescription narcotics. When you get one of these grows going, John, in the woods, and say it's a moderate size grow, which moderate for us is 3,000 to 4,000 to 5,000 plants, which by a normal, regulated private property grow, say in the Emerald Triangle, that's regulated, that's massive. But we see them 30, 40, 50,000 plants, sometimes bigger. So you can imagine the impacts they have on that hillside, how much vegetation needs to be removed for 5,000 plants. You can imagine how much water those plants are taking from a stream that's habitat to endangered trout, like the steelhead trout, aquatics, and many times drinking water sources for the communities that are below that mountain. Now you put carbofuran, one container, in a spray bottle, and it goes all over the plants. It's sprayed, basically by the growers all over the plants, the flower, the bud material. It's in the waterways right below each plant. We see it leaching into the creeks. We see it in the kitchen. It gets in the soil so much that animals are dying just from stepping on it. Some of our canines have been exposed to this stuff over the years. So, and again, this is if taken in enough of a dose, when it's immediately applied upon a plant, it is deadly if you inhale this stuff, deadly within minutes. And it definitely has carcinogen and cancer effects, all those different things. And we got to remember that a majority, not a minority, but a majority of the cannabis black market in America still, even with regulation, has this tainted weed in it. And users have no idea they're getting this. So we talk about, our fighting brothers, and we talk about medical patients, and we talk about people using cannabis legally recreationally. I'll take my old home state of California as an example. And if they don't know the source of their cannabis, if they don't know it's coming from a dispensary that's truly had it tested, they could be ingesting this stuff on the black market.
They should want to know, yeah.
You got to know. Yeah, I mean, who wants to ingest poison knowingly?
Yeah.
We just don't. You may as well go out in the field and, spray that stuff around and just walk through it.
Unbelievable.
So, yeah, that's a big point of Hidmore. That's a big point of what we try to get out, because it's really a public safety message as much, if not more, than it's an environmental message. But when you get back to the interior position and you get back to policies on how much resources are now going to be dedicated to enforcement and reclamation and science out there in the wildlands to combat this, which hasn't stopped. And I know we talked before the show, I just had a conversation with the team leader and good friend that replaced me when I retired. And he said, John, 2020, we're exhausted. We did not stop working. Once we got operational past all the COVID protocol where they couldn't even go out and do a raid. So the first 3-4 months of the tainted weed growing season throughout California's example, John, those cartels had no enforcement presence giving them any problems. And they knew that. And they played to any chaotic event. It is a field day financially for them. And it's also going to be very productive for them because they're going to have little, if no enforcement presence, trying to stop what they're doing. When our guys got a green light halfway through the summer, they worked to exhaustion. And I was told, quote unquote, it was as busy, if not busier, than in 2013 when I started the team with the guys. Wow. And we had a pilot program where we had to go out in 3 months and justify what we were doing, why we were taking a special operations twist to be in game wardens, why we were focusing strictly on the drug cartels and not doing other traditional game warden work. And it was busier than that. And the guns they found, how many apprehensions our canines had to endure with these guys that wanted to fight. There were very few teams, us and a handful of others in California even fighting them. And they were putting down, I'm talking millions of plants. I can't tell you how much poisons they seized, how many guns, how many guys they took into custody, and how much environmental damage they saw. And there's no hint that that's going to slow down.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you this last time you were on. I was itching to ask you it, but I know it might be an emotional thing. Are we even making a dent?
Yeah, that's a good one. We're making a dent. I always say it like this, and God bless the guys on the team and my brothers out there doing the job every day and risking their butts. I mean, daily, and all the other officers, game wardens or not, throughout America that are fighting these groups, because these grows and these cartel elements are showing up in every state now. And if they're not doing tainted weed in an urban state, then they're doing the fentanyl, the counterfeit narcotics. But we are making a dent when we continue to work as hard as we've worked, because we put more pressure on them than they've ever seen historically.
Okay.
And we look at it this way, John. Are we getting every tainted grow site out? Absolutely not. But let's say a plaza boss who is in the cartel world, and Ed might have talked about this as well. We run across sometimes these upper level plaza bosses that are responsible for maybe 50 grow sites in, say, one large sector of California or Nevada or Arizona. When we get into taking out, say, 8 out of 10 of his grows within his plaza, the environmental impacts we made in a positive way is exponential. I mean, even if we take one out that's 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 plants, just the water poisoning, just the amount of dead wildlife, the
significant effect.
Yeah, and the risk to, our kids or grandkids walking down that trail, stumbling into that grow site, and maybe getting shot, maybe getting abducted, maybe stepping into a punji pit, another booby trap, anti-personnel.
Yep.
I think every one we take out is effective, but we are not stopping the problem. We're definitely doing better than we did 10 years ago. And other states now that we're starting to work with that are experiencing the problem, and they don't have the personnel we do in California, as an example. They don't have the training, they don't have the background, the weaponry, the administrative support that you really need to do this job on a special operations team level. And all my brothers and your buddies as well, a lot of people we know mutually from an SF standpoint in the military, to be effective, you got to kind of have the gloves off, and you got to kind of have every piece of equipment you need, training support and logistic support from above. And other states just don't have the bandwidth to do that, and the cartels know that.
In your opinion, what will move the needle? Besides what you just said, going a little deeper.
More of us doing it enforcement-wise, and also, and I get this question all the time, and I addressed this a little bit in that last chapter of Hidden War, does regulation work? Does it not work? I think it can work, but it has to be done properly. And it's not that these states that have regulated cannabis to try to stop the black market, try to get pure product into dispensaries, and try to stop the cartels, it's not that that can't work. It just hasn't worked because of the finances involved, the profit in cannabis, all the oversights the agencies need to charge for various different inspections to get this going. And we're doing it state by state.
Right.
And the problem with state by state is as soon as you transport over state lines, you generate a black market in one state when you're legal in another state. And it just hasn't worked. Colorado showed us that. California's shown us that. When we regulated shortly after 2016 with Prop 64 in California, and again, I highlight this at the very end, so it's food for thought for the readers. After 2 years of fighting it on the ground, after regulation, the black market got worse. The cartels got more active. And again, John, it was because we didn't regulate properly. If we did something federally, if we made it enhanced felonies and really got strict on these trespass growers, whether they're cartel-based, illegal or legally here, it doesn't matter, and did something along that line, you might see a much bigger dent. Yeah. Kind of like the tobacco or the wine industry as it's regulated.
Right.
You know?
Well, the book's Hidden War. And like I said, I'm 3/4 of the way in now, and you know, it's a phenomenal read if you haven't. And some of the stuff I had John just highlight are things that, you know, I've read through it, but for those lay people listening, if you don't understand, you know, he lays this all out in the book what some of these things are, and you need to understand these things, even if you are a recreational pot smoker, you use the drug, you know, there is therapeutic components, and no, this isn't condemning it. It's more regulating it so you get a cleaner, better product. Yeah. And that's one of the things John's an advocate of. If you get a chance to read the book, you can kind of see those undertones. It's more the effects on the conservation and on the land, and that's what people have to understand. It's important you understand where your drugs come from. Know where your drugs come from.
You gotta know where your drugs come from. And that's the thing, John. When we started the team and the whole cannabis, what's called the cannabis enforcement program now for the whole state of California on the game warden side, is we're a regulated state. So we needed to go in with the cannabis industry realizing we're not here to be Gestapo. This isn't old school. This isn't 20 years ago. This is state level. We're not here to be against your cannabis. We just want it done right. So we want to reward the growers doing it right, that are environmentally conscious, that are sending a good message. And we want to absolutely condemn and take out of business and circulation any trespass grow operation that nobody wants to see, left or right. And I'm talking mostly 90+%. These are those cartels out of Mexico, and we're not going to sugarcoat that,
right?
As I go into in the book. But by taking that stance, I can honestly say we've had some unity. I can say when, you know, the traditional left environmental side of the cannabis industry and old school growers that were kind of outlaws under, you know, the 215 laws back in the 90s, when they started calling our team their earth warriors and loved what we were doing, I said, okay, well, now we're meeting with, you know, we're going face to face with hugs and not, you know, handshakes and hugs instead of handcuffs. And you guys are actually helping us fight the fight by educating, by putting money and effort, you know, in paying for your regulated fees to grow legitimate cannabis. That money comes back into, you know, the government fund, and we actually benefit from that operationally. And that's one thing regulation in California has done. It has fueled the financial fire that we needed to be more effective.
And there's a lot of money.
And there's a lot of money in cannabis, in regulation in any state, right? Yeah.
And Ed alluded to that the cartels were still deeply involved.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so.
And I wanted to get your side of that because I started to reflect on your last podcast and his and start to tie the branches together. And he reflected on that. I wanted to get your thoughts on that and how deep this runs. Is it just something that's happening and they infiltrating, or is it going all the way up to the government levels with PACs and things like that?
Yeah, we don't know to that level if you know, we're talking, you know, corruption or some sort
investigative
of
level,
you know, some sort of collusion, if you will. There's certainly been allegations of that. You certainly see that in a lot of you know, interesting Hollywood stories. But what we do know, John, right now is, and this is interesting because I know when Ed and I met, we had both been on Joe Rogan not too far apart in our stories. And one thing he did when he got wind of Hidden War, before we had even had a conversation, and kudos to my brother Ed for doing this, is he said, see guys, I've been talking about how embedded Sinaloa and other cartels are in America. It's not just happening in Mexico, and they're not just importing this stuff or smuggling it. We have embedded infrastructure living in America constantly and working with impunity on these criminal enterprises. And he said, this book highlights someone fighting it on the ground on the American side of the border. And I told you guys it was going on. And so that really generated a great relationship with Ed and I, because we hadn't known about each other.
Right.
But it validated what he was saying to his listeners and followers, especially his experience, in Mexico and all the crazy stuff he saw before he left, coupled with what I was seeing. So basically, it's a two-way street. It's an expressway like the I-15, northbound, southbound, and they both go just as fast. And it's as active down there as it is up here in America. And getting across the border is a $4,000 to $7,000 venture for a plaza boss to get his best grower, his best human trafficker, his best fentanyl producer. It's a road bump. It's a speed bump on the highway. That's all it is. And that was with the border protection security, the wall going up in the last administration. Definitely not a limit. Definitely not a reduction of border control from a law enforcement standpoint, because I can tell you right now, I've been to the border. I filmed our first Thin Green Line film down there. I've seen the infiltration on wide open ranches. I've seen the violence that goes on. I've seen it from human trafficking, from clandestine narcotics, everything. And I can tell you how overwhelmed those border patrol agents and those pilots and those game wardens are when they were a year ago, before we lessened the pressure down there. So that's what concerns me. And this is not political, brother. This is not going to help us. Not taking a stance on the border for the sake of public safety and environmental crime protection is not going to help us. And it's got nothing to do with an immigration issue. And it's got nothing to do with a tolerance or acceptance issue of mixed culture. And I think people look at it and they try to blend the two, and we got to make sure the public understands that's not what we're doing at all. We're just trying to protect what we have in this great country, and we're trying to keep people safe down there as well, and working with Mexico is going to happen.
That's
to continue.
That's when, John, people start playing identity politics.
That's
and
it.
That's all that is. That's
beautifully said. Yeah.
That's when the identity politics comes in, and people try to position, whether it's the immigration issue or setting up a grow or anything. They try to position it as you don't like that culture, or you don't like those people, or you don't like, this great melting pot or this great salad, whatever you want to call it, that is the United States. That's not the case. If I lined up 20 legal immigrants, they would say the same thing. And they have multiple times. Part of the reason why, Trump gained so much vote in Miami and in Broward was because people don't want to live in a communist structure that lived in a communist structure. People don't want to live in an no offense to my friends down south, to an anarchist state like Mexico. They don't. And I've had multiple guests on, Ed included, that are from Mexico and that are first generation and second generation. They don't want to go back to that. But you get these, and this is where it becomes a little political. You get these radical mindsets in the political structure that, because they learned it at, I'm ashamed to say because I went there too, Boston University, or they learned it at, shout out to AOC. They learned it at Boston University, or they learned it somewhere else. They think they're doing something righteous. And it's not about the righteousness of it. Everybody lined up would agree. It's noble to want to build this great country with the best and the brightest. But to your point, you're not taking in the best and the brightest. You're taking in the worst. And the countries know that. And that's why they'll open up their prisons. They'll open up their jails. They'll open up and they'll say, go. They'll take, go. They'll give you a meal. Go ahead.
Start rolling.
And, I think people misunderstand, and they call it xenophobia. They call it identity. They call it all these things. Boil off all the fat is what I always say.
Sure.
Do you want the best and brightest in this country? Yes. History has proven that if you go through proper immigration channels, you will achieve that. You'll get hardworking, good people to want to come to this country and to want to participate in capitalism. If you open the borders and you give people amnesty, which amnesty is a very loaded word now in politics.
Very much, yeah.
You're giving them free reign. Yeah. They can get pulled over without a license. They can they don't have to be questioned. They can pretty much operate with impunity. You've pretty much given diplomatic immunity to anyone who comes over the border. It's no longer a privilege. It's a right.
Right.
And that's what it's become.
that's what it's become. And, you know, I had that same backlash when I started to tell this story right when the book came out. And I think the first podcast that I started to get some backlash on was Meat Eater. And then certainly when I talked to Joe Rogan about it, and we talked about the fact that this isn't a prejudice, this isn't a culture
No,
bias, but everyone automatically said, hey, look, you're a white guy that was raised in the Silicon
you're the
Valley.
devil.
You're on a law enforcement team, you know, that
You pay taxes. You're the devil.
you're a game, yeah, you're the game warden guy. You're a white guy. You came from the Silicon Valley, and now you have a team that's out hunting, taking down cartel members, but you're really a racist going after Latins from south of the border.
Xenophobic.
And I said, well, wait a minute. Let's analyze that. Let's get past the xenophobia. Let's get past the initial knee-jerk reaction, and let's look at the facts. I mean, I'm not from Mexico, John, but one thing is I love Mexico. You know, I'm part of a Baja racing team where we Ironman the Baja races on bikes and quads. I've been racing down there since 2006. Love the culture, love the people, and I've been down there enough and talked to the authorities down there enough. And of course, God Ed is a great reference to fill in the blanks when I'm not there, not being from there, to show that beautiful country, beautiful people, generous, hardworking, everything we see that we want for our country here, you see it in the general population down there. And, you know, we support an orphanage. Kids that have been homeless off the streets at early ages, Mexicali, Ensenada. And since 2006, when we started racing down there, brother, we have fallen in love with these children and watch these kids have the right support, have the right funds, have the right facility to not only go to high school, but get an opportunity to go to college, be a college graduate, and get into a profession and love what they're doing. So I guess what I'm saying is if I'm a racist, I'm doing a horrible job at it, for one. And for two, this xenophobia thing, we got to get past that and really look at the issue. And you said it perfectly. We are so pro-immigration done correctly. We don't want to stop any of that. We want to see the mix continue. It's an amazing thing that makes us this great nation that we are. So I don't take it personally when I get those, but those racist terms for the job I do and the message we're trying to put out there. But what I do get out of that is realizing that people aren't looking deeply at the issue and they're taking a xenophobic face value judgment on me and my work or any of us, Ed, whatever we're putting out there. Yeah. And you got to look past that, man.
It's like I said, it's Karen culture 2.0 rebooted. And you get these SJWs, and everybody knows the social justice warriors. You get these SJWs that they have to win an argument that nobody wins. And in the end, we're trying to protect this country, and we're trying to keep the things we love about this country, the integrity of this country, moving forward. At the end of the day, what people don't understand is you can't turn the country into a welfare state. Biden comes in, issues an executive order, kills the Keystone Pipeline. You have hundreds of guys, hundreds that were making six figures plus now out of a job, right? And you get this blase, people that come into the cabinet and they just say, oh, well, they'll find jobs. You know, these jobs don't just pop up. These are highly specialized areas. And it's the same thing. Down on the border, he just wants to snap his fingers and say, the borders are open, right? The borders are open. But basically, the judge did the right thing by stopping it because there's not enough manpower down there. They don't have the manpower yet. You can't just say, no. Oh, wait, we're going to do this. And that's part of it. And it's not, like I said, it's not a political thing. That's a fact of life. That's an intangible fact. You have to ramp up the manpower. You just spent 8 to 12 months bastardizing law enforcement, turning it into your whipping boy. Nobody wants to go into the profession. And how do you staff that? How do you staff that? You know, the border control guys are up to their fucking eyeballs in trying to figure this out. Overwhelming.
Before the cut, before the push to cut. I mean, John, I can't even emphasize enough how difficult that job is. And anyone that's going to Monday morning quarterback or armchair quarterback critique this thing, until you've been in a grow site and you've gone up against a very hardened criminal that wants to not only hurt you but kill you, is going to pull a knife and stab your canine, is going to pull a pistol out of their waistband or pulling an AR or whatever, and watching them put these chemicals all over these plants and laugh about the animals they killed that didn't get to their plant. Come on, man. That's everybody's joy in this country. Whether you use the outdoors or not, the outdoors are purity. They're not political. We don't have that much left, and you mentioned the pipeline. The pipeline is a good example of, is that going to be a viable job source? Is it going to be viable to sustain the country without damaging the impact and all the environmental impact reports on projects like that? And the other side of being a game warden all these years was me looking at environmental impacts of, say, a housing tract going in next to a creek, an oil refinery, next to a channel. If those proper mitigation measures are taken, because we are going to develop as a culture, we're going to have to, and jobs are there and the environmental impacts are not, then why are we stopping it?
The pipeline thing hits home for me because I had a friend break the whole thing down to me who was very close to the Keystone thing. And here's the issue. We're going to use the oil regardless.
It's going to get used.
So it's like when I explain to people, different things, whether it's about laws or where we are now. And I always come back to the where we are right now is a big theme with me. You can't just, like I used to say about the 2A argument, we'll get there, when people say, well, it's 2A,
Yeah, here we go.
I get it. But
fired up.
Yeah, just fired up. We'll ramrod this through. They don't understand. When you go to the table, we're all sitting at the table. In the Department of Energy, we're sitting at the table. We're going to use that oil.
Right.
We're going to use. So this is where we are now. I understand, and there's not a person that wouldn't agree with you. You want to go to wind, you want to go to solar, you want to go to this, you want to go to that. All those are plausible things.
Right.
We would love to explore them, but they're going to take 100 years to get there. You can't kill something now that's going to get through one way or the other. Let me tell you something. The Keystone Pipeline is going to happen.
Right.
One way or the other. Okay, it's going to happen at some point. You can't kill something that's feeding you now. It's like saying, you know what? I'm not going to go to work because I don't want to have a paycheck come in, but I still want the food for free.
Right.
It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. You're still going to use the oil, and you're still going to need to refine it, and you're still going to have to get it here. What that creates is energy dependence on outside forces. And these are where people who don't understand and who are listening, these are where the sweetheart deals are made.
Right.
This is where, we're not going to be energy independent. Why do you think the market's been so great? Gas is inexpensive. It's inexpensive to move things. It's inexpensive to get products in people's hands. Gas has been phenomenally great, knock on something wood, phenomenally great the last 4 years.
Right.
And when you stymie that, and you start shipping by rail or any other way, that's more impactful on the environment. That's more impactful on everything else. So people don't really get it, that's when these back alley deals are made. And when we start to get our oil from non-domestic partners like Venezuela,
right,
the United Arab Emirates, other areas that aren't exactly our friends, you think they're giving us sweetheart deals on the pricing? Hell no.
Good luck.
Hell no. They're bending us over a barrel.
Right.
And they're having their way with us. And the reason that these political figures, and I want everybody listening to understand this, the reason why they let it go or they allow it is because they want to have a sweetheart speaking engagement over there, or they want to have, the ability to get some type of, whatever it is with that group. Whether, I'm not going to get into whether it's Burisma or this one or that one. Now, why do they want open borders? Why does the left, why is it advantageous to them? And I'm just regurgitating what people should know listening. The left loves open borders because it's cheap labor that comes into the country, and they'll vote their way. Because the first thing they're handed when they come over the border is, oh, make sure you vote Democrat, because you don't need a license. You don't need to vote now. Right. You don't need anything. Just show up with a pulse.
Yep, and you're good.
You don't even need a pulse. Sorry, John. You don't even need it. And that's part of the problem. And it creates a trickle down that in the end, and this makes me sad. In the end, the hardworking person that pays their taxes every year and does their job and puts their head down and works hard pays for some of this.
Very much so.
Pays for a lot of it.
Very much so.
And it's frustrating because people need to understand that. And that's why people, when you flee, and I'm saying this to everybody listening, when you flee California, when you flee Georgia, and you flee wherever, and you go out and all the people leaving New York right now in droves.
Right.
Don't vote the same.
Right. Or everybody leaving California.
Choose
same thing
wisely.
Yep.
And I want to clean this up because part of the reason why people didn't understand it, why they wanted Biden to answer the tough questions, is we don't know what this guy stands for.
Right.
We don't.
That's the scary part. And John, that was a good analogy you pointed out before when you talk about,
The rub.
Yeah, and there's always a rub, right? There's always one on these issues. And the bottom line is that's what I'm scared most about is I think the lack of awareness of what these, they almost seem like knee-jerk decisions
Mm-hmm.
without analysts.
It's to win,
It's to
and nobody
win, and I
wins.
get that, and I don't care. Whether it comes from the left or it comes from the right, you got to look at a balance. And there's two things that are lacking in a lot of these decisions. And this isn't the first administration, or this isn't the first political dilemma we've had. I've seen this my whole life of 52 years or whatever it's been. Common sense and moderation and balance.
Mm-hmm.
You said it best: solar and wind and all those other sources to decrease our reliance on fossil fuels. Those are
Sure.
great. But can we completely power everything on wind? And what about this thing with solar and batteries and all electric cars? Is anyone looking at the waste of those battery systems and what those do to the environment? And when you do landfill,
Not at
and
all, John. They're not.
not at all, John. Exactly. So it's not a balance. And to think that we're not going to use fossil fuels and we're going to kill a bunch of jobs again doesn't seem to make common sense. And it doesn't seem like a moderate, realistic, logical approach to the fuel solution we need and have in this country. When if you're ensuring, like I said before, that our environment is not being impacted from this, and there are so many technologicals and redundancies to see that it's done. I've seen it in my career for 30 years on streambed alteration issues with multi oil spills I've responded to. It doesn't have to happen this way. It doesn't have to happen and use the environment as an excuse when, as long as the environment's protected, brother, we need to keep an open mind to this as a country.
Well,
And the rest of the world does too. Not let's take this out of America's world. Let's look at the globe as a whole. And we're not doing that.
I try to explain this to people when they start to say, well, the data, right?
Right.
And I want to get into a deep environmental issue. And I say, well, we've been relying on fossil fuels for, say, the last 150 years, 200 years, whatever you want to call it. Well, we have thousands and thousands of years of living on this planet, right?
Right.
So when you look at what 100 years represents, it's a very finite blip. And we still haven't ruled out the cyclical nature of storms and weather
Sure.
and all these things because we're just
Exactly.
starting to compile that data. So it's incomplete. And I'm by no means dismissing the effects of global warming or whatever it is anybody wants to bring it. Nobody's dismissing that. And we do believe we have to get to cleaner emissions. That's a term I'll stick to.
Absolutely. I agree with you there.
100%.
100%.
But I know that we have some smart people in this country. I know that there's people like Elon Musk, and there's people that will one day just say, you know what, fuck these people. They're just going to cook something up in a lab and it's going to be good to go. That's the hope, right? And that's the beauty of capitalism.
Yeah.
And that's what you want, the innovation. You want to promote that innovation. I worry sometimes about, like you said, these knee-jerk reactions and like the desire to win, because we're in a culture right now that has determined, and I say this a lot, that because you're successful, you're the reason I'm failing, or because you're winning, that's why I'm losing. And everybody has to quote, and I'm using quotes around this, win. And
Right.
there is no win in the end. There's no win.
No.
How many people do you want to let in this country? What's the number? 10 million? 100 million? What's the number? It's like, where does it end? At what point do you say, okay, enough? We've built the greatest, most powerful thing in the world. We've turned, essentially turned the presidency into a weird. It's a weird thing. And
Can't
listen,
even define it right now.
Yeah, I can't even find the words.
It's surreal.
It's surreal.
I think surreal is I'm still trying to process that whole thing. But no, to your point, John, that is spot on. And when it becomes personal and emotional and it's so hate-based, we are doomed. We are doomed on decisions on things like the pipeline, on things like immigration, on things like open the borders, and things, everything that an agenda that's personally driven and doesn't really have America. And when I talk America, I'm talking the people. And for me, and the concert, I'm talking the environment.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the people, the environment, and all those things require a good economy, job opportunities, a balanced environmental, policy standpoint that protects our environment, but doesn't lock it up in such a way that it can't be used for good. And I've seen both sides, like we've discussed a little bit today. And as long as we stay on this left hating right hating left, personal attacks, throwing an agenda to win, as you say, you're right. and it's going to take minds. You mentioned Elon Musk and some of the amazing stuff he's doing with technology and where we may go in the future. Space program, only one small part of that. If we're not embracing that type of thought process and getting on that team from both sides of the political fence,
innovation,
we're going to fail before we go any further.
Yeah, it's terrifying. So I try to explain this to people. If you think this is, I grew up in Boston, so I grew up around staunch Democrats, and I used to have family members, friends,
right,
say you have to vote Democrat. They're for the union. Go tell that to the pipeline guys.
Right.
Go tell that to the pipeline. Hundreds.
Yeah.
And over time, it was going to be thousands of people. Welders, you name it. So to everybody who listens from back in my neck of the woods in New England, New Hampshire, Boston, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, you think this is your grandfather's Democratic Party, you are sadly mistaken. Right. And it's terrifying right now. Now, it leads to and lends to a whole slew of other issues and other things that we're scared about that affect us and that are trickle-down issues. I like to call them trickle-down issues.
Right.
That can affect us. The reason we talk so much about border and immigration is these are things that affect the Green Line, that affect the game warden space, that affect conservation, that affect the interior, that affect things we care about, hunting, land, the use of land, all these different things. If we keep flooding the country with people, where are we going to put them?
That's a huge question nobody can answer. And that's a very, very good question, John. And how are we going to regulate environmental compliance and protect what little good habitat, wildlands, waterways that we have left in this great country if we are flooding the gates or opening the gates? Again, that is not a common sense approach. That's not a logical approach. It doesn't seem to be. And traditionally, when you look at more of the environmental conscious that lean a little more to the left on some of these environmental laws, it's very contradictory because what is happening under that policy for the new administration and what's been thrown down, immediately does not protect the environment. And I can say that firsthand after seeing the effects, as can all of my partner LEOs and citizens on the border states. So I think getting back to what we said before, this is about keeping everybody safe. This is about protecting the entire country's environment for the sake of the country. And if you cannot honestly and ethically say that a particular policy, unless it's crafted correctly, can do that, then there's a flaw in the system. There's a failed policy there, and that's what I'm most concerned about. Like we talked about in the beginning.
Yeah, Tulsi Gabbard's been going around a lot.
Oh yeah,
she's been opening up some eyes. She's
been she's
been going around. She's been opening some eyes. She recently did a piece, and she was talking about how juvenile it is in Congress. How literally there's no talking across the aisle. There's no, and you can see it in her tone. She's frustrated, John.
Oh, she's
frustrated.
Yeah,
she got into politics probably very naively,
right.
I think she's admitted that, and thought like she was going to go make change. Sure. And I know that sounds terrible, but she thought she was going to actually make some change. And she came into it with open eyes and an open heart and probably made some very good suggestions, trying to be bipartisan, trying to pull people together, and tried to pass some good legislation. And she feels that we're being cheated as a populace, and that we're not being represented properly, and that a lot of it becomes political theater, that there's a lot of this pomp and circumstance. And we see in that now very much so in the second attempt at impeachment. And we see this whole dog and pony show, and people don't realize, and it's important we talk about this, the dangerous precedent some of these things set.
Very much.
And what people don't understand is, regardless of your thoughts on Trump, we can't have the Senate turn into the Hague. It literally can't turn into this kangaroo court. Nixon set the precedent. He resigned, he left, he was gone. You want to impeach the president? If he runs again, you have my blessing. Go after it.
Go for it.
But we set this precedent that we're going to go after people, and we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do that. It's not a step forward. It's not the way to go. It's playing the game with your hands tied and your feet tied and trying to move like a slug forward. It's not the way to do things. And I'm sharing my thoughts on that truly bipartisan. It's not the, when Clinton was impeached, I think everybody understood it didn't affect how he reached across the aisles. It was
Right.
a wrong decision. It was terrible. Everything, he abused his power, all the things. But at the end of the day, he was very effective at reaching across the aisles, at pulling people together, and people get that. But the reality is, and that's a testament to him being, an Arkansas Democrat. It was
Right,
a different
right.
animal. Like I said, it was a different Democratic Party at that time. And now to go this route, I think is very dangerous. And I think it starts to create this lynch mob. And it starts to create a lynch mob mentality of what we're going through right now with social media, which is like we're gonna shut this person down because we're in the mood.
Yep, we're in the mood. They're a little far right now in this particular message, or if you can even
I don't like them.
Yeah, so we're going to censor. We're going to shut down. The whole big tech issue that's going on, and I'm glad you brought that up. Of all the other hot issues we haven't talked about yet today.
No, we're gonna get there.
But the thing that I really like about Tulsi Gabbard, and she was on Joe's show just recently again.
Yeah.
And she did. I like people in the political arena like her that really have kind of the pulse of.
I think she's speaking the truth, John.
I think she's speaking not only the truth, but she truly loves America.
Yeah.
And she loves America for the whole. And like you said, if the roles are reversed and we were going after a Democratic president after the fact, how is that benefiting our country right now? Right when the new administration comes in, all this hate is in our legislative system to push this impeachment after our president is gone. And all these other massive hot button issues are going on. The stuff in China, COVID, all this hate going on in the world, and certainly not friends of ours as nations sometimes, and things we got to settle up. How is that helping? It's just, again, it's that personal hate and emotion, and I got to win, and this is the agenda. And so we're spending taxpayers' dollars, and we're putting time and effort into this ridiculous fight that isn't moving us forward at all, and we're in a critical time right now. And I think she hits that on the head. I think there's a handful of other people in the political arena that, we all have our personal choices, but I think there's real great examples of leadership for the sake of the whole country, regardless of being a Democrat or Republican.
And to me, it's
far more unifying.
To me, it's as clear as day, John. If you want to be the hero in this equation, right, and you want to win hearts and minds, and I'm going to be a political strategist for a second here. I might be a political strategist, but I'm a 10-cent one. I'm a 10-cent one.
Okay.
So if I'm Biden, I pick up the phone and I call Schumer and I dead this.
Right.
And I come out with a press release and I say, listen, there's no benefit to this. I'm stopping this.
Right.
Where it is. And become the hero. Then you become a great unifier. Now everybody says, wow, finally we have some real leadership, right? And what you do in effect is I hate to give the Democrats any insight, but you suck the power from the past administration because you become a vacuum. Because you've now basically come up and said, I'm going to be a leader here. Time out.
Right.
We're not going to do this. We're moving forward. This is the Biden administration. We're done. Now you're just giving fuel because you're not going to get it through. It's not going to go through.
Right.
Okay. They've already did a preliminary. It's not going to go through. So it doesn't go through. You get a 55 to 45 vote, whatever. It's a token vote.
Total waste of time.
Waste
of resources.
You waste 15 days and there you go. So with that being said, it lends to other things that they're going to go after and other things that they're going to pursue. And they're going to pursue things like an ammo tax. I know you brought one of your newer toys with you today. I want to get into that because I do want to get into the social media and I want to get into the firearms debate too with you. You brought a new toy with you. I'm excited. You got a new Glock 48 MOS. Tell me about that. Let's get into that.
Yeah, this is I got a Fawn 2A thing on the Glock. I've carried Glocks for 30 years, John. I carried 3 on duty. Was really lucky to retire with my last Gen 4 Glock 22 and my Glock 27.
Shout out to Catherine and Gaston.
Yeah, they're amazing. And the cool thing was those are engraved with, California Game Warden with our badge laser engraved. And the serial number happened to be, I'm an old salt dinosaur. So my badge number is under 500 in the agency. So of the 500 guns, I got my badge number was my serial number of the gun I retired with. Jack Carr and I he did a little thing on that. real special to me. So I've been fond of Glock. Glock's become, they've helped with product sponsorship. I do some commercials for Glock through American Zealot Productions, and just love their platform. But I've been, the more I'm out and about, to
Right.
get an everyday carry compact pistol that can actually perform like a full-size pistol that I was used to carrying. And I've been carrying a 43 for several years now, but now this 48 came out. But, with the MOS system and being a red dot guy and using the tactical tools, pushing a nice 48 MOS, just got this. And this sucker is, I cannot believe the accuracy. I put some posts up on Instagram the other day. Swamp Fox has been gracious enough to sponsor me on the optic side. And their little Sentinel, which is made strictly for these some compact pistols, including the SIG Smalls, the Hellcat, by Springfield. But this dot is amazing. It has an adjustable reticle, one of the ones that the first one that I think works as it should, meaning you don't adjust the intensity with levers or buttons like you would on the Trigicons I've used in the past and other models, but it just reads the ambient light and adjusts on its own. And
what's the retail on that?
They retail at about $300, but you can get them
smartly priced.
Yeah, and you're going to get them delivered for about $260 with a battery, with all the bells and whistles. So and it's a veteran-owned company. I'm really happy with the quality. I've test run it hard. I'm going to use some of their larger sights on my bigger Glock platforms, and they have the only other mil-spec rating for waterproofness and shock other than Trigicon. So, like them, I'm really grateful for them. And the grip system I'm putting on this 48 MOS, John, I talked a little bit about this. This is a Handle It Grips, veteran-owned. Reached out to me several months ago, just wanting to send grips and let me try them. And I've got them on all 10 Glocks now.
And you like the grip texture?
I like the grip texture. It's just enough skateboard tape-like without being abrasive, and it's adhesive. And with a heat gun or a hair dryer, you put these on, you fit them really easy, and a non-craftsman like myself can put them on without making too many mistakes.
Don't try to gunsmith at home.
Right? And they peel off if you ever have to change them, and they don't get in the way of any of your fire control pins to do.
It's clean. It looks clean.
Yeah, it's really nice. Feels good. You've seen it. On the big guns, it's great. And for especially gloved hands, operators using gloves or sweaty hands on hot days, that was always the issues I had on my patrol Glocks. And I had a Pachmeyer rubber sleeve on my Glock 22 that, worked well, but it bulked the grip out. And this is just so thin. It just holds that nice single stack feel that everybody likes.
To everybody listening, when you get old, I don't want to say John's old, but we get older,
wiser.
You start to look for a flat gun. Flat becomes a thing, and
very much.
Yeah. So the 48s, the 43s, that series, the single stack series, and even the Smith & Wesson Shield, guns like that, you start to look for something that's going to give you that flat posture up against your skin. Because a lot of times if you're wearing sweatpants, or when you retire, you wear sweatpants, right? You start wearing, you're gonna look for something that fits flat against the body. Or if you're starting to run either a fanny pack carry or off body, you might look for something that's going to fit into the There's a good chance for a plug. The Galco fanny pack.
There it is.
There it is.
There it is.
So, the 48's a perfect option. And I like that they're putting a lot of the serrations in the front and it's starting to make the press checking a lot easier, and it's just a well thought out pistol.
It really is, John. I mean, I've been kind of, it's the 43 is a little small to do long range work with, and I'm talking 25 yards and beyond with any type of accuracy. But when I added this dot and I zeroed this thing, I was shooting sub 1 inch groups in the snow in Montana 2 weeks ago. I could not believe this thing shoots as good as my Glock 35 full size tactical 40 cal. And something cool about Handle It Grips that we talked about, I'm a thin green line guy, as you know, it's my brand, and they make a thin green line variant. They make a thin blue line and thin red line right into the grips systems, or you can have the plain black grips, and it works out pretty well. The accuracy on this little pistol is amazing. It has become my EDC.
I would say Glock the last 3 years has done a great job listening to the customers.
They have.
And coming out with options.
And something cool you and I talked about a little bit before the show is this new wave of micro compact weapon lights. Surefire's got a real small one. Streamlight, who's now a sponsor of mine, is going to have their TLR7 sub out. They just launched at a virtual SHOT Show last week. The first ones are going to land, but that little light, dude, barely extends past the rail. It's not just a little bit wider than the trigger guard, and is 500 lumens with an hour and a half runtime. And it weighs 2 ounces.
All the lumens.
Well, I mean, I couldn't get that type of illumination out of my AR lights at work 5 years ago, So everything's gotten smaller, but I've never
They're
tried.
getting more juice out of the batteries.
They're getting more
the
juice.
batteries are getting better.
Yeah, and with compact pistols, as you know, man, I've never gotten the speed and the accuracy. It's always been a compromise. But with this 48, I shoot it as well as my 22, and you can get high cap mags for this thing, and a multitude of good, small carry profile holsters or satchels or whatever you want to run. So
I would say the only criticism is, and Catherine, if you're listening, I would love if Glock did a single stack like 30 rounder.
That would fit this studio
perfectly,
and it would be
a drum, a single
drum.
stack drum.
Yeah, a drum would be great, John.
Yeah.
So,
Catherine,
can you help us with that?
Get into it.
Is Gaston going to approve that? Let's do it. The other thing too, I didn't even think of talking about this, but I did go with some aftermarket mags. This is the Shield
steel ones,
the steel, and they're the same width as a polymer, but they're 15 rounds. They're 100% reliable. You just got to remember to change the existing Gen 5 mag release to steel. And Shield makes one, and this is the steel one. And unless you're going to shoot the gun a lot, it might not be an issue. But I shoot it a lot, so I replace it out, and this thing runs like a sewing machine. And it has the capacity of my full size.
And it'll still run the regular mags.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. It'll run the regular mags perfect. So neat system, something to share. And I thought you'd like to see it today.
It's a great way to open the conversation.
Yeah,
I thought it was phenomenal.
As we dive in,
I procured a 48 myself not long ago. I haven't done anything with it yet, but you've inspired me, and I'm sure I'll spend thousands at some point on some nonsensical trick out package of the 48. But Glock. I will say this about Glock. I said it earlier. They've done a good job listening to the customers and the end users, and I think that's really critical. The more you start to listen, the more you start to pay attention to what the folks are looking for, you come up with ideas like this. And I think a single stack has been a long time coming in that 9mm platform, and that's something that the industry's been craving for a long time. I believe they debuted, the 43 and 42 a couple of years back, and then went with the 48, which is essentially a chopped down version of the 19.
Very much.
It's right in the wheelhouse, and it fits. I mean, I gotta tell you, it fits everything. It fits
nicely.
Your pants. I mean, you can wear sweats and have that thing in it. I mean, if you carry a 30 round mag, I mean, you might be a little. The weight might be a little bit of an issue, right?
The weight, the extreme, but so that'd be a sight.
That'd be a little much. You might be printing. Just a thought, but
right.
I love that they're listening.
Yeah, they really are, and we on the enforcement side, all of us Met guys and a lot of other officers in patrol jumped right on the 42s and the 43s. I mean, even when that little 380 came out, the 42, I have one of those. I call it the Grogu gun now because it fits my the little baby Yoda better than anything else. But the 43, that gun's been an EDC, man.
And it's you have to understand where they all fit when you choose a platform. To everybody listening, because I know we're spitballing here and people love this, but when you choose a platform of 43 and 42, just like a revolver, become like a get off me gun.
Right.
They're
exactly.
I'm losing, bang. So that's where they fit. If you want to get a little more mileage out of something and still have it be a good carry option and something you can actually train with, the 48 gives you a lot more. And I think that's what people were looking for. I wonder if they'll go bigger on single stack. I wonder.
I think they might. I noticed they put a 48 MOS system on all the 40s. That just dropped. And there was talk, all of us that have
going up to 30, like the 34 length.
Yeah, and just keeping the 40 in an MOS platform. The idea we were told from Glock a year ago or 2 years ago on the armor front with the agency was 9mm becoming so standard.
Yeah, 40 is a dead caliber.
Yeah, but Glock came out and put all their 40s with an MOS just to satisfy that user. And being a 40 shooter for all those years, John, I can say those bigger bullets at velocity when I've had to put big animals down have been good. But the 9mm stuff that's out now, the bonded 147s, perform.
People have to understand how that round was born. I'm not a ballistician, but I have a 10-cent education in ballistics. Right. But the 40 was born out of the Miami shootout. And if you recall, the Miami shootout, originally I shouldn't say that. The 40 was not born completely out of that. The 10mm was.
Right.
And when the 10mm came out, it was an amazing round. The problem was the recoil associated with it. It was a very, very, if the 40's snappy, it had a lot of drag and it had a lot of push and pull on it. So it became more of a hunting and nostalgia caliber. It still exists in many, many forms, including the Glock 20.
Right.
and including the Colt Delta Elite, which I have one on the wall right behind my head. It's a phenomenal caliber, the 10 millimeter, for hunting and for game application. You know, as a backup piece, it has a place. And I know that the 10 millimeter, I believe, was adopted by some agencies, especially in Alaska and certain areas.
Yep.
The 40 became a darling of the 10. So you take this, you have this necked down caliber that exists, the 40 Smith & Wesson, and people start buying it, and chiefs start loving it, and boards of chiefs start adopting it, and every agency starts to adopt it because they think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Then you start to get these agencies that wise up, and they start to say, well, wait a minute, everybody's complaining this is snappy. It's an expensive round. 40 is expensive. We can get all this 9 millimeter, and wait a minute, we can fit more 9 in the mags.
And
so it gives our
guys
guys
a little less for smaller shooters. And from a training standpoint, John, same thing.
So I tell everybody the same thing when I used to go and do demos. I used to say, what do you think's improving faster, bullet technology or gun technology?
Right.
Bullet technology, because the way primers and the way they refine powders, that's improving a lot more.
Hollow point designs, bonded technology, copper.
So 9 is starting to ballistically give you all the things that you want.
Right.
With that being said, 9's starting to become in vogue again.
Oh, it is.
And you're seeing it come around.
Yeah, you're seeing it. All the agencies. You know, the writing on the walls for us was about 3 years ago when we were kind of in our heyday. You know, Met was just running full speed, and we were using the 40 on missions with a lot of other agencies that were ammo compatible. Santa Clara County Sheriff's Office, their Met team, the groups we started with and worked hand in hand with for over a decade, they were a 40 agency as well. And then their sheriff decided to test and evaluate and put her range guys we work with in operations, and actually skeptics of the 9 compared to a big 180 grain 40 bullet. But they did the demo test, they did gelatin, they did steel, they did penetration on barriers, and they found that the bonded rounds in the 9 were doing as good, if not better, than
gave you all you could ask for.
And so now we're the only agency out on Met operations, you know, at least in the Silicon Valley, that's got 40s. Everyone else has gone back to 9 millimeters. And, you know, we talk about this on the team. You get that shift, that big ballistic debate. The FBI data comes out. Yeah, after the Platinmatic shooting you mentioned in with the FBI. And now we're going to be on the 9. And then, we need something bigger. We're going to be on the 40. And then we're back to the 9. So I do like to see this transition to the 9 because you said it best, brother. The ammo technology, not just in the last 10 years, but in the last 3 to 5 for pistol calibers,
it's improved.
It's gotten ridiculous what these little 9 millimeters can do. And, you know, and I still train a lot of first time shooters, and I get women and, you know, older kids and, you know, adult men that they haven't shot a lot. And then they grab a 9 and they shoot a 48 compared to any of my 40s or my full size 9s and go, oh my gosh, they shoot better. And of course, why do they want it? And I will say this, I won't mention a name, but one of my very first students and a good friend, when she came to get her first pistol class from me going back about 2 years ago, she said, what gun do you think I should get? And at SHOT Show, the Glock 48 was at the Glock booth. We had just launched a bunch of video content with Glock, and you know, the silver slide version. They didn't have the black slide version yet. And I handled it. I
remember that.
And I looked around and I tried everything, and I said, you know what? Go to your gun store and just handle a Glock 48 if you can even see one. And she ended up buying one.
Glock's good about that, though. When they launch something, it's out pretty quick.
It's real quick, man. And after I got a hold of that pistol and saw how much better she and other students were shooting a single stack 48 9 millimeter than a double stack 9 or any of my 40s, 95% of all the guns in the subcompact category, if they're going with a Glock, and no dig, because SIG's got some great weapons too, you know, their compact line, they end up buying a 48 or a 43. And they just shoot it more effectively. They're not intimidated. They qualify easier, and they can shoot good ammo out of it. So I had to break down and get 48s.
Yeah.
And now I'm sold. It's going to be mine too. So yeah,
it's a phenomenal caliber. I used to get a kick out of it. There's one agency in particular that comes to mind, but I'm not. When I used to go around and do demos, I remember being in an agency and getting into this debate, the ballistics debate, which will go on forever, with a chief. And I remember saying, you know, with a SWAT guy there, you don't like 9, but your SWAT team carries MP5s.
Right.
So I'm like, you're not making any sense. So, you know, common sense kicks in. I'm like, some of the old timers will still carry the cocked and locked, 1911s.
Sure.
You see those, you know,
Great
they're kind of
pistol.
grandfathered in guys. I know Carl Ruggiero over at SIG was a long time carrier of a 1911.
Yeah.
He was, I believe, Reading SWAT team.
Yep.
Shout out to Carl. What a great guy.
Yeah, good dude.
And
Never,
a lot of good
never
dudes.
worked with him or knew him, but his reputation precedes.
Yeah,
him.
he teaches
Great guy.
a dying art, the shotgun class at SIG.
Yeah.
It's a dying art.
Yeah.
It really is, you
Yeah.
know. It's funny to say that, but shotguns is that type of training is a dying art on the ranges. You don't see much of it anymore. Mainly because the cost of it too, the steel and everything else, it pretty much destroys the range by the time you're done.
Just hitting too hard for sure.
Yeah, it blowing away your wood and everything. So I want to get into the gun debate a little bit.
Sure.
Because we touched on it last time and we started to get into it. It's a scary time to be a civilian gun owner out there, and it's terrifying. You're out on the range, you're training people, you're spending time with people, educating them. What are they asking? What do you say?
Just what you said. It's a scary time. There's a lot of changing laws by the minute. I've been doing a lot of CCW prep classes for folks, and being up in the state of Montana, just learning their laws now that I'm out of California, for a couple of years now. And the first thing I don't think there's ever been more of a need to be competent and mentally sound with the right mindset for firearms ownership right now. And the more the merrier, being a 2A guy for all the right reasons of what this great country was founded on. But the laws and the limitations and when you can, deadly force rules of engagement, all the liability that we're going to go under. And then, this surge of gun control laws that came out of this executive order. The things that just started immediately that got slipped in that we were seeing on all of our 2A forums and, everything from social media and on the legislation.
They're trying to crowbar one through now, John, with, I see all kinds of HIPAA problems with it. They're talking about, a psych evaluation, disclosure of a lot of personal information that's going to go into databases. It basically be like a HIPAA violation I got to imagine that's going to get stopped. That doesn't seem like it'll fly.
Yeah, I don't.
At least that incarnation of it, I don't see that flying because you can't start to give lay people your HIPAA information without proper training on the other side. So that's going to create a boondoggle on that front. But they are going to keep trying. And I think the plausible one is an ammo tax. And this is something I've been ranting about. I'm a savage on LinkedIn to everybody listening. But this is something I've been ranting about. I don't believe we have an ammo shortage right now. And I know that that's controversial.
Sure.
But I don't believe it. I absolutely unequivocally do not believe we have an ammo shortage. What we have is a supply line problem.
Right.
But that's not an ammo shortage.
Sure.
We have not been in a large-scale war or conflict for a long time. I know, and from walking these ammo factories, there are millions and millions of rounds that sit at these ammo factories. And what I think is going on right now is companies are very happy getting 70 and 80 cents a round for 9 and upwards of $1 for 5.56.
Oh, it's crazy.
It's crazy right now. And
nuts.
I challenge some of these ammo companies to take a long look at what, stifling the works here a little bit and not flooding the market, because here's the problem to instructors like you and instructors I know and love. You're taking the popcorn out of the movie theater.
You really are.
You're taking the popcorn out of the movie theater, and it's a risk. It's a very dangerous risk and game that's being played. I know instructors right now, they can't hold a class.
Right.
Because there's not enough ammo.
That's a huge issue, and you mentioned that. And fellow instructors I'm seeing that have had to either taper back or they had to limit the number or reduce
becomes
their
like
class.
a seminar.
It becomes like a seminar, and it's very little live fire. We all have classes coming up, and one thing I will talk about is in April through Silver Spear Security, a group that I do podcasts with, and their executive protection group, good crew, doing a lot of work with the guys from Shinedown on it, Nickelback, and we have a good group of 2A conservationists more than anything else, like-minded that are within those groups, which is awesome. But 3 days in April, 9 through 11 in Apopka, Florida, I'm slated to teach a 3-day class. We're going to do trauma medicine.
It's going to be hotter than hell.
It is. I'm going to go to human country. I usually teach on the West, but it's going to be a day of defensive pistol, day of defensive carbine, a day of extensive trauma surge practices that we've had to do firsthand on ops and mindset training. And right now, people have no problem signing up to go to the class, but they're like, how do I get the
How
ammo?
do I get the ammo?
And can I get enough ammo for this class? And I've reduced my round count to a bare minimum. You know, and you know how it is, John, with training. That's an investment when you got students traveling from across the country,
Yeah.
shipping ammo ahead of time, or trying to. And some of these classes just may not happen because of it. But for those of you that can get ammo, come train while you still can right now.
I had an interesting chat with a very high level executive at a company that rhymes with fig, and you know, we were talking about this, and it's hard where the trickle. I talked about this before, where the trickle down starts to affect people is if it's $1,000 to go buy a case of 9,
Right.
which is historically what guys would show up with. Hey, is a brick, you know, I'm gonna half a brick, whatever. If it's $500 for a half a case of 9, then $200 to take the class. It gets harder for people to make the $700 investment into training,
Right.
and that's why I'm one of the few people. I'm always, you know, it starts out, John, I'm always banging the table about something, and if I'm banging the table about, you know, SHOT Show and the NSSF, then I'm banging the table about because they don't understand you're fucking it up. Right. For everybody else.
That's the dilemma, John. That's the real dilemma right now. And when it gets to a point where the training's not going to happen to vetted civilians or LEO first responders that want refresher training, and
we're screwed.
We're done, you know. And I mean, it's gotten to a point where, you know, some of us from an instructor standpoint, we got to make a living, but we don't want to soak our students either. We just, you know, for me, I just love to teach, especially new shooters. People on the precipice of going to what I would consider, you know, a competent operator at mid to advanced level, and that transition and that the first couple of classes, and seeing people that just really gravitate towards it and get that confidence and, you know, outdoor safety, every you know, imaginable thing you get with good 2A work. But it's getting to a point where we're probably not going to be able to teach the number of classes we wanted to, or we're going to have to stay local where people don't have to travel and they can.
And you got to get a good ammo company that's not going to screw you, that you can get a barrel of it and say, look, I got some, you know, come, you know, we'll charge you this for a scoop or whatever.
Yep.
Because it's ridiculous. And pretty soon people are going to be teaching dry fire classes.
Pretty much. That'll be 95% of it. And, you know, maybe you'll shoot a box of ammo if you're lucky.
Because 5.56, that's $1,000 investment.
It is right now. And
all day.
Even reloads with 9, with the best companies that support us, I think, you know, you're talking $650 to $700, $1,000 for reloads.
Because I know Tony, Real World Tactical, he's going to show up at the range with at least 4,000 or 5,000 rounds to help his people out, you know?
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy. And people don't, and what frustrates me is the companies don't get that. And you're trying to explain, listen, you can't take the popcorn out of the movie theater. You can't take, the reason is the popcorn is you in the movie theater, that's your markup. That's everything. I mean, if they made money, I read a book from the owner of Lowe's who founded Lowe's. He said, I thought I was getting in the movie business. I got in the popcorn business because it's 11,000% markup. So you have to, because it costs about 10 cents to make a bag, if that, you know, and they selling, what is movie theater popcorn up to? Like $4 or $5 a bag. You got to get it.
Yeah.
You got to get it. And that's what they're doing with ammo. Right. And that's the problem, is they're doing this with ammo where they're playing this game of they're being cute about it. And I know a lot of executives, I have verified sources, I have agents deep in the deep state of the gun industry that have said to me, if you need it, I got it for 40 cents. If you need it, I got this. I have a list. I got a black book in there.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. And they always say, I'm not going on the record. But I know I'm going to have Tom Taylor on from SIG. He's going to comment somewhat on it. But what you have out there is a lot of large entities with very powerful buying power, and they're buying up a lot of the primers, a lot of the brass that's coming in, and they're sitting on it because they're not stupid. They don't want to be, you know, it's like musical chairs. They don't want to not have a chair when the music stops, right? They want to be able to continuously produce ammo and keep their people working. So at the bones of it, they're good. But the problem is when they're willing to buy up all that they can get their hands on right now because they're turning over their inventory very quickly, the little guy in the middle and at the bottom that affect pricing structure, they get fucked. And what happens is we get screwed on the back end because now, whether it's Hornady or Federal, control the whole thing. I mean, Vista, they control the whole thing. They own everything. But that's the real reality. So to everybody out there, you know, listening, get on your ammo manufacturers, get on, you know, get in there and get in their head and tell them they got to get more supply because once that ammo tax comes in, it's very hard for a price to go down once it comes up on anything.
You know, and that's the thing, John. You mentioned the ammo tax, and you know the way to control guns to the umpteenth level is tax the heck out of this ammo and just put people out of business of being able to shoot. And unless you keep large quantities of ammo or you hand load, which a very small percentage of us do, you know, when you look at the overall numbers, right, in the shooting community, that's a real effective way just to get people not to have guns or not to be able to shoot them.
Tax it.
Record tax it. And that's the worst part about, you know, some of these gun
And
legislation laws we talk about that I see coming down the pike. And
there's
it's already been announced.
there's no better time than now, because they can say, wow, we got to pay for everything. We got to pay for the coyotes coming over the border. We got to pay for everything. So let's just do an ammo tax. That's what happens is they slip it in like a thief in the night.
Right.
And we get screwed in the end. Now, I don't think they're going to have enough time to get large-scale legislation through that would affect the gun community, because I think they're going to lose the House in 18 months. I think they're in an uphill battle, because here's the problem, and I alluded to this before with you. They don't have enough data on who these new gun owners are. And you have a lot of little D Democrats that went out and bought guns because you see them on the range.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're first timers, but they're trying and they're figuring it out. And as they figure it out, I said this before, there's something that happens when you purchase a firearm. You don't typically say, I don't need this anymore, I'm going to give it back.
Right. That's not a normal progression. And the other thing, you know, you mentioned it, John, on this new group of shooters that we suddenly saw, you know, really largely with the pandemic dropping, and people concerned like, oh man, you know, if the supply chain runs out and I don't have resources and I can't call 911 and get a law enforcement LEO here to help, I might have to, you know, fend for my family. I might have to protect my family. If things get violent, I might have to, you know, provide food for my family and learn to hunt. So we had a lot of, you know, traditionally non-conservation, non-2A types, mostly on the left side, with booming gun sales, right? And we had, I think, a 30% increase in hunter safety education certificates and classes being taken online. March, April, May. And so on the game warden front, and, you know, my co-host Wayne Saunders and I over in New Hampshire talked about this on our first couple Fingering Line podcasts that we were doing right when COVID was just getting alarmingly crazy. You know, I'm talking late March, early April. And we got the question like, well, what do you guys think of that? I go, well, the more conservationists we have out there, the better. I don't care about politics. I think it's a unifying thing. You know, I mean, let's get everybody out there. We can disagree politically, but if you can be competent with a firearm, know how hunting works, believe in hunting, maybe it was survival generated, but now you sort of have to learn conservation when you take a hunter education course. You don't just get the certification to use a weapon safely and shoot a deer. That's logic. That's good information. That shows you that you're helping wildlife and you're helping the environmental balance by being a hunter or just taking that course. So I think we might have, you know, won some hearts and minds on one side without beating anybody up politically and making it a personal attack. So of all the madness that's come out of this divisive political train wreck we're in right now, and the fallout of the pandemic and everything COVID's brought, there have been a few positives. And not enough to really make a big difference yet, but that was a good start. And when you said you're seeing some Democrats on the range starting to go, hey, wait a minute, you know, and I had this comment a lot, like they go to buy their pistol in California and buy some ammo, and they, you know, the floodgates, maybe they have a Springfield left or one SIG because they're just going like hotcakes. I can't take it home right now. Well, no, there's a 10-day wait.
Yeah.
You remember that? What do you mean there's a wait? Well, guys.
I had the guys on from Warrior One Tactical.
Yeah, you know, and I mean, waiting periods make sense in some play. I'm not against waiting periods for the right reasons, but all of a sudden, these individuals that were not familiar with gun laws and the impacts of them that they, you know, politically were for, and now they're contesting it like, because it affects me personally. And I know I'm not psychotic. I know I'm not a killer. I know I just want it for legitimate defense. And
What's
I want
going
it for
on here?
What happened? Well, that's it. Now people are starting to see maybe a little bit of the other side, and we can go, oh, all right, now I get it. And no, guns aren't evil. They're a tool, and they can be used for evil things, or they can be used for a ton of life-saving things, including feeding your family and protecting your family. Heaven forbid it turns that bad.
What are your thoughts on, and for the record, I did pass my hunter safety course, Andover Sportsman Club.
Love it.
Yeah, I did pass my hunter safety course many moons ago. What are your thoughts on SHOT Show being canceled and how that's played out?
Man, that's That's a hard hit, man. And I think a SHOT Show #1 in our industry, and for me, Safari Club International.
Yep.
That one, their annual convention that one's near and dear to me because for the first 10 years, the last 10 years, actually, 11 years now, since my first book dropped, I've been doing seminars there annually, coming back, have an outreach table. And that's the conservation driving. There's a lot of resources at SCI for good conservation. SHOT Show's been my world, now for 4 or 5 years, especially since I've retired. And a lot of the great relationships I built with my brand, with Recoil, Magazine, Gun Digest, all the mutual companies you and I work with. I mean, they've really helped propagate not only putting good equipment in our hands, but a good message. They've been part of the Thin Green Line. And now if we're going to go to like this virtual SHOT Show that just happened last week, it's interesting. I was talking to the head of law enforcement development and sales, Tim Taylor, over at Streamlight, as we were getting to know each other before they, graciously sponsored my efforts. And he said, "Hey, I got to apologize. I know I got your voicemail like a week ago, and we just been underwater with virtual SHOT Show." I went, "Well, I'm glad you called me back because it was a cold call. We haven't really worked together yet. You're an East Coast guy. I've been primarily a West Coast." But I asked him the same question, what do you think of that? He goes, "Well, we got information out, but like my other companies that were on the virtual stuff at the Blade World, especially at Blade Show, it was very impersonal, and canceling SHOT Show or doing it overly restricted where you can't really integrate." Because the best relationships in our industry, John, and I'm preaching to the choir on this, is when we can get shoulder to shoulder, we can talk product, but it's those after-hour visits, it's those meals we're having, it's all those things are the relationships we build to get good things done in the tactical world. And I'm really disappointed. I was looking forward to it, and I held on to those room reservations right until it canceled, and then SCI dropped 2 weeks after it. So I'm crossing our fingers for next year. How about you?
You're a nicer man than me because I'm slightly more critical.
Yeah,
and everybody knows this.
Lay it out.
The NSSF and NRA has failed us miserably in so many ways.
There's been some problems for sure.
They've failed us miserably in so many ways. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I have friends on all sides of the aisles. We need those organizations, and we need them now more than ever. And here's my problem. You can hide under the veil of we're bankrupt and we're going to go here. I get that. Okay, the move to Texas for the NRA, everybody gets that.
Right.
The NSSF and the handling of SHOT Show, part of the issue I think everybody has with that is there are several other ways it could have been handled. The NSSF should be at the forefront of the industry in educating the FFLs and the end user consumer. And I feel like they're not.
Right.
And this is a great year. Now, I've heard through my sources and my agents deep in the deep state of the firearms industry that over $4 million was pumped into the Georgia election. Do you understand what $4 million could have done for the online streaming or for in putting educational material out there and helping develop some of these new gun owners and indoctrinate some of these FFLs into new streaming? I don't know if you have this giant network of FFLs, which is what the NSSF is essentially.
Sure.
And you have this huge embedded network. Why wouldn't you have a channel? Why wouldn't you have a channel that streams not only educational information, but also streams personalities, people like yourself, people that can lend value to that? Do you know what $4 million I know for sure could have bought your attention? It could have bought mine.
Man, the outreach and the media blitz you can do with that kind of money. I wasn't aware of that. And I've been hearing rumblings of similar problems in other organizations that we're all fairly close to. That can't continue. We're at a critical breaking point right now on 2A issues nationally and on mindset. And the more we can put out that conservation, ethical, legal 2A message, the better.
The problem,
and it's going to have to be in education, John. That money cannot be taken.
The problem continues to be the chasm between the 25 to 40-year-old segment of the population and the 55 to 65-year-old segment of the population in terms of how we consume media is never been wider. It is the Grand Canyon of chasms. You sit with these people, and I've said it right in front of the camera. This is not John talking. This is me, John, talking. They need to get their act together, and they need to get it together now. And they need to figure it out, and it needs to stop being 5 old guys in a room saying, but this is how we always did it.
Well, that's a new world. You said it. There's old school media, And then there's the light speed, let's go warp factor 10 now, social media and every type of social media platform.
I look at what people like
at.
John Lovell are doing. I look at what's going on out there. I look at the streaming networks, the capabilities. Listen, if you're the NSSF and you're out there right now listening, if I'm one of those guys, Mark Olivia, any of those guys, go out and start to build these entities and start to get behind these entities.
Yeah.
And whoever is pumping money into whatever areas, I get that politically we need that. But right now, the 5 million or so new gun owners need you. Right now, the instructors need you. Okay, you're turning your back to the bedrock of those organizations.
Right.
And I'm going to tell every guy with a beard and tattoos and everybody right now listening with the BDUs, with the 14 gussets and 17 pockets, you need to start banging on the door and tactical. You need to start banging on the door of these organizations, because you literally will not survive if you continue to be a carnival. A carnival sells space, makes money off the space, and goes back to their trailer.
Right. But a carnival is not sustainable.
A carnival is not sustainable.
Right.
You need to understand something. You have to build something. And if you build something and nurture it, whether it's omni channel, okay, whether it's something like a platform for video, a paywall for video, anything, something that the FFLs can stream right into their shops because they all have TVs.
Right.
Okay. Something that, don't be reliant on the Pursuit channel. Don't be reliant. start to build something.
Yeah.
And start to put it out there. And I guarantee you'll be very surprised the reaction you'll get.
Surprisingly.
Positive.
Yes, very much.
Because they're craving leadership right now. And the industry's craving leadership right now. It needs someone to step up and be a leader and say, this is what we have to do. Somebody in the room needs to say, I'm just amazed, John, that all this has gone on. There's been layoffs, I get that, but not a single head has rolled. Where's Wayne LaPierre? Where are these people?
We're not hearing anything.
Where are they? And I beg them, and I say it with all sincerity and honesty, now's the time we need you more than ever.
Definitely.
To come out from the shadows and say, this is what I think. What are you, like basement Joe Biden? Hiding in a bunker? It's the honest to God truth. Because you go on these websites, and I can go right now. And I hate to put you on the spot because I know you like to, you're Switzerland. You like to be safe. You go to these websites and you read the shit that they put out there.
That's crazy,
and
man.
It's nothing. They're nowhere. The NRA dumps New York, reincorporates. The NRA announces 150th annual meeting and exhibits. Well, that's not happening until later in the year. NRA statement on ATF recent action. Imposter Santa denies toy gun request, gets the sack. That was a month ago. What are your writers doing?
Yeah, where's the relevance? Is anyone talking about the new bills, these drop downs that slipped in right with the change?
That was a month ago.
Yeah, you don't see anything current to what affects these owners and all of us citizens.
The NRA Cigar Club. Like, how much money did they put into the Cigar Club? How much? Unfucking believable.
Do I hear change coming, John?
Yeah.
Do I hear change coming?
No, not the change we want. I can tell you that through my agents.
Right.
My sources. That's not coming. And if you go to the NSSF website, go to it right now. I'll put everybody on the spot.
Papa, what do you got?
I'm gonna read you their big initiatives. This is the big initiatives. This is the Firearms Industry Trade Association. You ready? Buckle up because they're super exciting.
Big news.
These are their initiatives. Operation Secure Store. We work with the ATF and FFLs to deter and prevent thefts. No shit. Project Child Safe. We send a lock and educational material with every gun. That's been going on since the Clinton administration.
I'd say 20 plus. Yeah.
The Plus One Hunting Initiative, I can't hate on. I get it. It's been around for a while. I understand
It's
it.
positive.
And then Fix NICS. Firearms retailers rely on NICS to ensure lawful transfer of firearms to law-abiding citizens.
Really?
Fuck me. I mean...
And that's innovative.
How about a big banner that says, Firearms News now? Get news right now. Tune in. This is not how people consume media, John. It's not.
They're not. Yeah, they're not seeing that.
They're not seeing
That's
that.
not in their face.
I mean,
that's not the modern age of an Instagram.
And I said
flash.
this to a very high-level executive just the other day at 4 o'clock in the morning, my time, 7 a.m. his, while he was driving into the office. This guy is very high up. I said, am I crazy?
Yeah.
And he goes, no, you're right. You're just the only one willing to talk about it.
We're talking about it.
Yeah.
We need to talk about it.
It's got to be discussed. And to everybody that gets on my case,
yeah,
I'm crazy. Listen to me. We need you. And I mean that. And I know you mean it when you say it. We need them.
We do.
And they have these big baskets of money. Get behind the right people. And if you have your nephew or your cousin or your friend in charge of the media department, get rid of them.
Yeah, get real media out there, John.
Bring someone in that knows what they're doing.
Do it in an effective way.
And stop doing it this way.
Right.
Because you're doing it wrong. Nobody consumes it that way. You're going to be irrelevant. Because I'm going to tell you right now, there are Twitch gamers that have bigger followings. It's a kid opening presents on YouTube that has a bigger following.
Right.
Build a platform, create a paywall, and you'll be very surprised who will get behind it. Very surprised. Positively.
And that effectiveness isn't just, it's not a luxury for the message. It's a necessity right now.
Necessity.
I mean, we are at a breaking point on 2A issues like we started with. So kudos. I'm glad you're bringing that up because even some of those I'm not aware of. And it's critical.
It's dated. It's just dated and it's tired looking and it's just not exciting.
And it's reachless.
I'm going to call him out because he made the comment public and my hat's off to him. Matt Wolf from Enforced Weapon Lights made a comment on LinkedIn and he said, some of these old timers got to go. And he's right. They got to go. It's time. I know little Susie got like 2 years left of school and you're just trying to float by. Or John, I'm tired. My nephew, I got to get him in and I'm good. Your nephew will be fine.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is. It's the good guy thing.
Right.
He's a nice guy or he's a good guy. We don't have time for that right now. We really don't. Little urgency.
Rocking the boat is sometimes necessary.
These are just honest. I said it many times. If SHOT Show did it right and there was symposiums and we could have these conversations, we could open up these dialogues, the world would be a better place. But before I came along, everybody was like, oh, don't say that. Don't talk about that. Don't talk about this.
Hey, we don't talk. We don't progress.
Don't bring it up. Oh, everything talked about the NRA was like under a rug. Like I'm under my desk, John, talking about the NRA.
I'm on the black channel. Yeah. I'm on the black channel.
And I love some of the new orgs popping up, but they just don't have the clout yet. They're getting there. There's gun policy. There's some other ones that are surfacing, but there has to be a sense of urgency now. And I've done 340 of these, John. 340 of them.
Wow.
And you're one of the smartest guys that comes in this room. And I say it all the time. Everybody says, you're right. You're right. You're right. You're right. Right. I can't be right about everything. And then all of a sudden everybody walks out of here and we keep doing the same dumb shit. That's not normal.
Yeah. It's not logical.
It's not logical.
And the bottom line is we're not making progress in the right direction, John.
We gotta be. And the instructors need it now.
Yeah.
The ammo thing I brought up, all these agencies, we need it. And the executives are scared to speak up because of a number of reasons. I get that.
Sure.
I get that. I got to do it. I end up having to be the bag man.
Well, no, it's great that you are, and it's great that you have, this diversity of guests that are all loosely, at least loosely, if not very strongly, 2A connected.
Mm-hmm.
But we come from a diversity of backgrounds where we have real logical, rational, reasonable reasons this lifestyle needs to continue. Whether you're a gun owner and a gun user or not, you need to understand what we were founded on, right, as a country.
And you got to be emotional about it.
And you got to be emotional about it because it's such a hot button emotional issue for people that don't understand it, haven't been around firearms, don't understand the culture. Maybe they weren't raised shooting or as conservationists or recreational shooters, and it's very easy to taint that message when you haven't had that exposure. And we need, like you said, I like when you hit it on, these archaic ways of getting messages out that are not only dated, they might not even be as proximate to the issues that we need to be talking about, but no one's seeing them on the platforms they're being dropped on. So all that has to change.
It's I believe it was, and I just wanted to, NRA invests at least $4.5 million in Georgia runoffs. Are you out of your fucking mind? Are you out of your mind? Do you know the media conglomerate we could have set up with that? John, what you could have done with that?
Easily. The outreach potential there was incredible. And what did that money really do in the runoffs?
You had a horrible candidate in Kelly Loeffler. Granted, she was what we had. You know, we were stuck. They fucked us when they put her up.
And look at all that money spent.
They knew she was a tainted, tough candidate to get elected. She was a tough one. She was nominated. Don't forget, she never won.
Right.
She was a nominated candidate, and that's what they do. I mean, they give us. I don't want chicken when we're trying to make steak. They give you the billionaire white woman. We'll just throw her up there. I'm telling you guys, $4.5 million. $4.5 million. Me and your camera guy could have done a better job.
I'm telling you what, man. Yeah, on a lot less budget.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of budget for outreach.
It's a lot.
Yeah, with the right people.
Come on.
Behind it.
So I get frustrated. I understand. To Jason we met and everybody listening, I understand the why. I get it. But come on. You can't look at me with a straight face with that shit. You can't. Because for all your oh, we don't have NRA TV, we don't have this because we got rid of Ackerman McQueen. You could have built a media empire with that.
Oh, yeah.
You could build a whole media train. Instead, we pour it down a wishing well. That's what that was. It's a wishing well. We wish. $4.5 million. That probably covered the craft for food service tray for that election because they put $1 billion into that.
Crazy.
I know you don't like to get hot and heavy about that shit.
I do. It hits me like it hits you.
But I think of the instructors out there. I think of the guys out there that make a living doing this. And I know it's frustrating. It's frustrating because I see it on a macro level and I look at it and I say, wow, that money could have done so much in so many areas. You know the streaming platform you could build behind a paywall at the NRA with that?
It's madness. I mean, half that budget.
Give John Lovell that budget. See what his Warrior Poet Society thing looks like.
Give him a quarter of that budget and watch him rip.
Are you kidding me? And the sad part is I offered the show to them. I talk about that a lot. I offered them free. So I'll give it to you free.
Okay, I didn't know this. Interesting.
Free.
Yeah.
I said, I'll give it to you. Put it on a pay. I'll give you the show. Oh, we're like the Titanic. It's we're a ship you get that speech. We're a ship and it takes us a while to turn and everything else. Listen.
You might be too controversial.
Oh, fuck.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Too outspoken.
I say what's real. Instead, it's let's pay this one's salary or let's pay that one. I don't even know who's watching any of their shows or what they got. Unbelievable. I don't want to get, but I look at the money. It's the money that bothers me. It's too much spent in too many wishing wells, and that's part of it. Now, the gun issue is going to get scary.
It is,
but we do have a house. Hopefully we regain the house, and hopefully we can get to that period of election with the data being slightly in our favor in terms of new gun owners, and that's where the gun issue is right now. We're fragile, and it's a very delicate thing, and we're scared, and I'm scared. I'm scared for the instructors. I'm scared for the people that make a living off this business. I'm scared for the people laid off from the NSSF. There was just big layoffs.
Yeah, it's so there's so many levels of what we got to look at that frighten me too, John. Just like you're saying, it's ultimately it's a culture that's, when done right, it's a beautiful culture, and I don't want to see it go away. And you mentioned the economic value of it. Those of us that our livings are based on it. And especially guys that's all they do is instruct, and they're great instructors on every level. That's heartbreaking.
But John, I'm telling you, it's true. If they started a paywall tomorrow, we'd all volunteer.
Oh yeah.
We'd say, "What do you need?
Yeah.
How can we help?"
Without a doubt.
You need media? I'll get on the next plane.
Sure.
What do you need?
You just need exposure. I'll do it through my channels.
Yeah, whatever you need.
Yeah.
Unite the clans.
Unite the clans.
Unite the clans. It's time. Now,
blow the conch. Rally up the troops, man.
It's so true. Funny you said blow the conch, because I had another executive say to me, it's like Lord of the Flies out there.
Is that what he said?
Yeah, that's literally what he said. I'm serious. I'm dead serious. That's what he said. He said it's like Lord of the Flies. It's like You know, it's insane. You have one person holding the golden scepter, and then it's like everybody else around clamoring on how they can kill that person to get the conch. It's like, you know, it's like I don't want to get into too much inside baseball, but we're literally almost seen that play out on the NRA floor last year.
Yeah,
that's literally what it is. And they moved the NRA show. Thankfully, NRA stepped up and they bumped the show. That was a smart move.
Yeah,
smart on their part. They moved the show, and my hat's off to them for that. At least having that
was a good step. Definitely a good step.
Absolutely. Now, everything aside, where are we? We've been going for an hour and 45 minutes. Did we cover everything on your list?
Man, today I actually had a list today because.
What did we miss?
And we talked all the cartel, infiltration issues in the border, which I'm glad we did, by the way, for doing that. I know we have, I think we're going to do a Blade and Book giveaway today, aren't we?
Let's get to that. Everyone who's listened all the way through, I'm going to get a graphic made and I'll share it and all that. I'll have Marcy do a graphic. Nice. But we're going to do a Blade and Book giveaway. I'll ship it out. I'll get a graphic up and we'll create some rules. But the book is The Hidden War by John Norris, and he's got a dynamite blade. It's a green line blade, V-knives, right?
Yeah, V-knives, thin green line, Trailblazer. We call it the EDC, thin green line Trailblazer folder. I co-designed this with Mike Bellicamp, my buddy and CFO and founder of V-knives. You guys have been great. With the first run of 1,000, guys, is almost gone. We have a handful of these blades left. We are going to make another run, but they're going to be delayed many months. So this is one of the last few black handle blades we have with serrated or non-serrated blades, and we're going to do a giveaway.
We'll get the graphic made up and we'll get the rules and we'll share it. And once the show's up and everything, we'll get that out to you guys. John's going to we want to sign the book. We'll sign it.
Yeah, we'll sign the book, and we'll personalize the blade box because the blade box is pretty cool. And we're even going to throw in one of our little hermit crabs.
This is fucking cool.
Yeah, my brother John.
A little jailhouse shank.
This is a little jailhouse shank, not made for a jailhouse shank,
not
but
made for the jailhouse.
But this thing is the size of this little blade, guys, is the size of a thumb drive. It's called our hermit crab, and it's got a great little cutting blade. You can cut your steak with it in a restaurant. It's an everyday cutter. It looks like a little hermit crab when it's all closed up with a little, belt clip or necklace clip or whatever. These things retail for $10 each, and we sell 10 packs for $100, and we do them in different colors.
Phenomenal gift.
And they're great gifts. Yeah. And we do engraving for companies, for tactical companies. They get given away at a lot of seminars and speaking gigs I do. But look at just go to V-Knives online. And,
if you find yourself in San Quentin, it's perfect.
Yeah. And you slip it right through.
Slip it right through.
We're going to throw one of those in the
back. Don't take it on a plane. Yeah. Wink. See what you can do.
Yeah, John, one thing I did forget to mention, and I just dropped a teaser yesterday on social media of it, but over the New Year's weekend, Mike Bellicamp and I designed the follow-up, and the two additional blades are going into the signature Trailblazer series.
Better be a sword.
Maybe. But you're right on one end. It is a fixed blade.
Okay.
So, and the second knife is also a fixed blade. That's all I'm going to give away at this point. But you're going to see a lot of the features in the Trailblazer you guys wanted that you're enjoying in a fixed blade profile with all kinds of features on the sheath and a built-in sharpener. And that's all I'll say for now. But those will be prototypes debuted at Blade Show if we have Blade Show.
Oh.
Knock on steel. Let's see how that goes.
Where is it this year?
Should be in Atlanta again.
Atlanta. It's a Georgia show because there's Las Vegas Blade Show too.
Yeah, and we'll probably be doing small that. And Blade
I usually
show
go
West,
to the
maybe.
one in Vegas. I've gone to a couple of them in Vegas with the guys from Microtech a couple times.
Well, I'm just hoping we have a show. But you never. I'm not going to say for sure we are because given the climate of having to cancel 2 Blade shows last year. But yeah, we'll have them prototypes out at Blade Show if we have it, at least virtually, and a release this fall for the fixed blades. So I'll keep you posted.
Well, I'm looking forward to it, and we will get a graphic made up to everybody who listens to the show. We'll get something punched out there. It'll be based on interaction, and I'll have John select somebody randomly and we'll get it out to them. We'll get it.
It'll be fun.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Looking forward to it, guys.
I want to thank you. It means a lot. You coming out and taking the time. And I know there's always plenty for us to cover. I mean, we go 2 hours like it's not even there. So I appreciate it. And I'm sorry about my crazy rant, but I need to do it every now and then.
There is never a reason to be sorry for a rant, man. You're passionate about the issues I love, and I appreciate you for that, man. Thank you for having me on. And it's funny. We go a couple of months and we don't talk, and all this stuff blows up. And I got to make a note.
I have a
next time I'm doing business in Vegas, I got to see John. He's going to want to talk about this.
I have a weird way.
I appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, I have a weird way of doing things because I kind of like that because
Yeah.
it builds it up, and then I can kind of
just
erupt. I can erupt, and I have 2 hours crammed in me. I'm
hit it
kind of
hard.
aloof before shows in case anyone hasn't noticed because I like that way. I kind of bottle it all up, and I take it and I explode. So I appreciate you guys coming on. It means the world to me when people take the time. I appreciate the hell out of it, and I can't thank you enough for taking the time to shoot over here and do a show.
My pleasure and honor, buddy. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I want to thank all the sponsors: Pulsar, Right On Optics, Gallo Tech, Right On Rhino Metals, Blackwater Ammunition. I want to thank Enforce today, Enforce Weapon Lights, and shout out to them and Kenzie's Optics too, and Microtech Knives, of course, and you know, everybody out there, go leave a review. You know, go check out the show if you like it. I'm trying to do my best to answer all the comments on YouTube and satisfy you guys. And I noticed some people are critical about the guest's mic and where they sit and where they oscillate and whether or not they could see. I'm doing the best that I can. Okay, I'm telling these people, please bear with me. And I appreciate all the listeners and everybody who leaves the comments. It actually means we're getting somewhere. So I can't thank you enough. If you haven't taken a minute, I do want to say this. Go check me out on LinkedIn. I post a lot of crazy rants on there. It's a good spot to see a lot of fire. And if you haven't, I do have a show Instagram. I've never plugged it. There is the John Bartolo Show _ Instagram. I've never plugged it on here, but if you guys take a minute, go check out the show page. We post a lot of the clips there. So if you take a minute, take a peek at all the clips. There's some fun stuff there. So I appreciate everybody who supports the show and everybody who's out there who comments. And thumbs ups are appreciated, and so are reviews. I'll talk to you guys later.